He thought he had it all until he received a photo that would change his entire life. What would make a man abandon his own empire for three little strangers? If you like stories like this, be sure to subscribe to this channel. We post every day. Continuing. Raphael Sterling watched the lights of London spread out like a sea of stars through the panoramic window of his office on the 30th floor of Canary Wharf. At 41, he had built an empire in the renewable energy sector that had transformed him into one of the most respected businessmen in the United Kingdom. RS Energy was synonymous with innovation and sustainability, with solar projects spread across the entire national territory and multi-million-pound contracts that made his company coveted by international investors. But on that Thursday late afternoon, none of that mattered. The boxes stacked next to the executive desk told a different story, that of a man about to abandon everything he had built to escape his own ghosts. The first-class ticket to New York was folded in the inner pocket of his Armani suit. Tomorrow night at 11 o'clock, he would be boarding an American Airlines plane heading for a new life. He had discreetly sold his majority shares to a group of European investors, retaining only a minority stake that would guarantee him dividends for the rest of his life. It was enough money to start over anywhere in the world, far from the pressures, the judgments, and especially far from the pain that gnawed at his chest every morning. His marriage to Marina had brutally disintegrated 6 months ago. 8 years of relationship, 3 of them married, shattered like glass in his hands when she filed for divorce 3 weeks before the birth of their daughter. The memory still haunted him. Marina, 8 months pregnant, her face swollen from crying, saying she could no longer trust him, that she had discovered things about him that made her question if she had ever truly known him. Raphael never fully understood what had happened. 1 week they were choosing the baby's name, discussing whether the room would be pink or yellow, planning what life would be like after Sophia was born. The next, Marina had changed the locks and hired a family law specialist. All attempts at dialogue were brutally rejected. She refused to explain what had changed, merely repeating that she could no longer live a lie. The separation was swift and sharp. Marina gained full custody of the baby. He was granted supervised visits that she herself rarely allowed. Raphael tried to fight in court, but the lawyers were clear. A businessman with a packed schedule and constant travel would hardly gain custody of such a young child, especially when the mother was a renowned architect with flexible hours and a structured family for support. The few times he managed to see Sophia were painful and embarrassing. The girl cried whenever he tried to hold her, as if sensing the tension between her parents. Marina watched him with icy eyes, timing every minute, interfering whenever the child became agitated. Raphael left those encounters feeling more like an invasive stranger than a father. It was this feeling of inadequacy that led him to make the decision to leave. If he couldn't be the father Sophia deserved, if Marina had made it clear that he would never be welcome in that new family setup, then perhaps it was better to disappear completely. He would leave a robust bank account for the girl's education and a letter explaining his decision. Who knew when Sophia grew up she would understand that he had left out of love so as not to be a dead weight in her life. His cell phone vibrating interrupted his melancholic thoughts. It was almost 9 in the evening, an unusual time for business calls. The number on the screen was unfamiliar, but it had the London area code. Raphael hesitated for a moment, considering letting it go to voicemail. Tomorrow, none of that would be his problem anymore. But something made him answer. Raphael Sterling? Yes, who's speaking? This is Nurse Lucy from St. Thomas's Hospital. Are you Sophia Sterling's father? Raphael's heart stopped for an instant. Yes, that's me. What happened? You need to come urgently, Mr. Sterling. Your daughter was admitted here 2 hours ago in critical condition. Very high fever, seizures, and signs of respiratory failure. She's in the pediatric ICU. The phone almost slipped from his hands. How is she now? Stable, but serious. The doctors are performing all necessary procedures, but we thought it important to inform you. Her mother is here, but Raphael didn't wait for the end of the sentence. He hung up the phone and ran towards the elevator, leaving behind the boxes, the ticket to New York, and all the escape planning that had consumed his last few weeks. London traffic seemed to conspire against him. Even at night, The city remained congested, and every red light was torture. Raphael drove his Porsche along the motorways like a man possessed, weaving between lanes, honking at slower cars, obsessively calculating alternative routes. The light rain that had begun to fall made the streets slippery and further increased his anxiety. During the journey, his mind raced in all directions. How had Marina gotten his number? They hadn't spoken in months. Why had she authorized the hospital to contact him? And most importantly, how was Sophia really? The nurse had said, stable but serious. But what did that mean for a 10-month-old baby? Raphael realized he knew practically nothing about his own daughter. He didn't know if she was allergic to anything, if she had been born with any special condition, if she had been sick before. He was a ghost father, a name on birth certificates and legal documents, but absent from everything that truly mattered. St. Thomas's Hospital appeared before him like a lit city. Raphael abandoned his car with the valet and ran towards the reception, still dressed in the crumpled suit from the closing meeting he had earlier. Pediatric ICU, please. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with a professional but warm smile, checked his documents and directed him to the 11th floor. Raphael rode the elevator with other silent visitors, each carrying their own dose of worry and fear. The characteristic hospital smell hit him as soon as the doors opened. Disinfectant mixed with something he couldn't identify, but which he immediately associated with illness and suffering. He followed the signs to the pediatric ICU reception, where a young nurse kindly attended to him. "Raphael Sterling, I'm here to see my daughter, Sophia." "Ah, yes. Please wait a moment while I call the doctor in charge." Raphael stood in the small waiting hall, unable to sit. There were a few chairs scattered around, a television on at low volume playing a soap opera no one was watching, and old magazines on a coffee table. Other families waited in silence, each dealing with their own anguish. "Raphael?" He turned and found Marina standing a few feet away. The woman he had once loved intensely was unrecognizable, her face swollen from crying, her eyes red and sunken, her brown hair tied haphazardly in a messy ponytail. She was wearing a crumpled striped blouse and jeans she seemed to have put on in a hurry. She was barefoot, wearing only socks, probably because she had rushed out of the house when Sophia fell ill. For a moment, they looked at each other in silence. Raphael felt a contradictory mix of relief at seeing her, pain for everything they had lost, and a strange feeling that in that moment of crisis they were just two desperate parents. "How is she?" Raphael asked, taking a step towards Marina. "The doctors say it's a severe respiratory infection. She'd had a fever since yesterday, but this afternoon it got much worse. She had seizures, Raphael, seizures." Marina's voice broke, and she covered her face with her hands. Raphael felt an almost irresistible urge to hug her, to offer the comfort that had once been natural between them. But the distance she kept, her defensive posture, made it clear that such closeness was no longer welcome. "Can I see her?" "Only every 2 hours. The next visit is at midnight." Raphael looked at his watch. It was 10:40, 1 hour and 20 minutes until he could see his daughter for the first time in almost 2 months. "Marina, You don't have to be here, Raphael." Her voice came out harsher than she intended. "I mean, thank you for coming, but you don't need to stay. She's my daughter." "Yes, I know. But you never—" Marina stopped mid-sentence, as if realizing this was not the time for accusations. "Sorry, I'm very tired, very worried. I don't want to fight." "I don't want to fight either. I just want to know how I can help." Marina looked at him as if trying to decipher if he was being sincere. After a few seconds, she sighed and sat down in one of the chairs in the hall. "You can stay if you want, but don't expect me to have the energy to pretend everything is fine between us." Raphael sat 2 chairs away, respecting the space she clearly needed. The silence stretched between them, heavy with history and unresolved grievances. On the television, the soap opera had ended, and the evening news had begun. News about politics and economics seemed to come from another planet. The doctor appeared a few minutes before midnight. She was a woman in her 50s with grey hair tied in a bun and a gaze that was both firm and compassionate, inspiring confidence. "I'm Dr. Helen, the pediatric pulmonologist in charge of Sophia. Are you her parents?" "Yes," they both answered in unison. "Well, I'll be direct. Sophia had a bacterial infection that quickly developed into pneumonia. She arrived here with respiratory failure and needed to be intubated. We are administering broad-spectrum antibiotics and she is responding well to treatment, but it's still too early to celebrate." Raphael felt the world spin when he heard the word intubated. His daughter, that tiny, fragile creature, was on machines breathing for her. "Will she be okay?" Marina asked with a trembling voice. "It's too early to be certain, but she's a strong, healthy child. I believe we will be able to reverse the situation. You can see her now, but only for a few minutes." The walk to Sophia's bed seemed to last an eternity. The pediatric ICU was an aseptically lit environment, with the constant sound of machines monitoring vital signs. Nurses moved silently between beds, checking equipment and making notes. Sophia was in bed number 7. Raphael saw her before he even got close and had to lean against the wall to keep from swaying. The girl he had held only a few times was surrounded by wires, monitors, and machines. A tube protruded from her tiny mouth, connected to a ventilator that made a rhythmic mechanical noise. Her eyes were closed, and she seemed even smaller and more fragile than Raphael remembered. Marina approached first, gently touched Sophia's tiny hand, and began to speak softly. "Mommy's here, my love. Daddy came to see you too. You're going. To be well, yes you are." Raphael stood paralyzed beside the bed. That was his daughter, but he felt like a complete stranger. He didn't know what to say, how to approach her, if it was appropriate to touch her. Marina noticed his hesitation and, in a gesture that surprised him, took his hand and placed it on Sophia's little leg. "You can talk to her. They say they hear everything." Raphael felt the warm, soft skin of his daughter under his palm, and something broke inside him. "Hi, Princess, it's Daddy. I came to see you. You're going." "I came. To be okay, you hear? You'll get better soon and Daddy will be here." It was only 5 minutes, but it felt both eternal and instantaneous. When they left the ICU, Raphael was different. He could no longer imagine getting on that plane to New York. He could no longer think of fleeing while his daughter fought for her life in a hospital bed. "Marina," he said, when they returned to the waiting area, "I'm staying. I'm canceling a trip I had tomorrow, and I'm staying here until she recovers." Marina stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to understand his intentions. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. She's my daughter, and I should have been here from the start." For the first time in months, Marina didn't immediately reject him. She just nodded, too tired to argue, and leaned back in the chair. Raphael took out his cell phone and right there in the hospital, cancelled his ticket to New York. Then he called his assistant and cancelled all meetings for the next few days. Finally, he looked at the boxes he had left in the office and realized they could wait indefinitely. His life had just changed course again, but this time towards what truly mattered. The first 3 days in the hospital became a strange and painful routine. Raphael had checked into a nearby hotel, but spent practically all his time in the pediatric ICU corridors. Marina had also practically moved in, sleeping in the waiting room chairs when exhaustion overcame her constant vigil. They took turns visiting Sophia, but began to synchronize their schedules naturally. Raphael brought coffee for Marina every morning. He still remembered she liked it with brown sugar and a pinch of cinnamon. Marina, in turn, began to update Raphael on every change in their daughter's clinical condition, every word from the doctors, every small progress or setback. Marina's initial hostility gradually gave way to pragmatic coexistence. They were two worried parents, united by their love for their daughter and the fear of losing her. The hurts and resentments had not disappeared, but seemed less important in the face of Sophia's fragility. On the 4th day, there was a significant improvement. Dr. Helen was able to remove the breathing tube, and Sophia began to breathe on her own again. Her eyes opened for the first time since admission, and she looked around with the typical curiosity of a 10-month-old child. When Raphael approached the bed and she looked directly at him, he felt a connection he had never experienced before. "Hi, Princess," he murmured, gently touching her cheek. "Daddy's here." To his surprise and emotion, Sophia managed something that looked like a smile. Marina, who was watching from the other side of the bed, also smiled for the first time in days. "She recognizes you," she said softly. "You think so?" "I'm sure. Look how she's looking at you." It was a moment of truce between them, a tacit acknowledgement that regardless of everything that had happened, they had together created that perfect little creature who was now fighting to recover. With Sophia out of immediate danger, but still needing to remain under observation, the doctors allowed the parents to hold her for short periods. Raphael discovered a paternity he didn't know he possessed. Initially clumsy, he gradually learned to hold her with confidence, to interpret her different types of cries, to soothe her with caresses and whispered words. Marina observed this transformation with contradictory feelings. On one hand, she felt relief at seeing Raphael finally taking on his paternal role. On the other, it awakened an old pain. Why hadn't he been like this during Sophia's first months of life? Why had it taken a crisis for him to discover he wanted to be a father? On the 6th day of hospitalization, Sophia was transferred to a regular room. It was a more welcoming environment, with an armchair that converted into a bed and space for both parents to stay together. Raphael insisted that Marina use the makeshift bed while he slept in the armchair, but she flatly refused. "You've already done too much by staying. Here all these days," she said. "You can go back home to your commitments. I can manage alone from now on." "I don't want to leave, Marina. I want to learn how to take care of her." "Learn?" The word came out laden with an bitterness Marina had tried to control. "Raphael, she's 10 months old. You should have learned a long time ago." I know I failed you both, but I'm trying to be different now." Marina looked at him with skepticism. "Until when? Until the next business trip? Until the next multi-million-pound merger that will consume your attention? No, forever." "Sorry, but I've heard that before." The silence that followed was heavy with history. Raphael knew Marina had reason to be distrustful. During their marriage, he had promised changes countless times. He had promised long vacations that never happened, weekends dedicated to family that were sacrificed for urgent meetings, important conversations that were indefinitely postponed because of emergency conferences. But something had indeed changed. Raphael realized this when he found himself automatically cancelling meetings to stay at the hospital, refusing calls from investors he would previously consider priorities, delegating important decisions to his team without even caring about the financial consequences. For the first time in his adult life, something was more important than work. On the 7th day, Sophia was well enough to be discharged the next day. Raphael suggested they take the girl for a walk in the hospital garden, as she was tired of being in the same environment. Marina agreed, and together they walked through the corridors, Raphael pushing the hospital wheelchair, where Sophia observed everything with renewed interest. It was during this walk that Marina finally began to talk about what had caused their separation. "Raphael, I need to tell you something about why I asked for a divorce." Raphael stopped pushing the wheelchair and faced her. "Marina, you never wanted to talk about it because it hurt too much, because I felt humiliated, betrayed, stupid." Marina took a deep breath. 3 weeks before Sophia was born, I got a call. It was a woman, a psychologist. She said she was having an affair with you. Raphael was speechless. "What?" "Marina, that's impossible. I never—" "Let me finish," Marina interrupted him, but without aggression. "She knew details about our life, about our arguments, about your sleeping problems, about your relationship with your father. She said you sought professional help because you were thinking of leaving me before the baby was born, that you were confused, that you didn't know if you wanted to be a father." "Marina," Raphael tried to interrupt, but she continued, "and the worst part was that it made sense. You were so distant during the pregnancy, working later, traveling more, always so tense. I already felt something was wrong, and when that woman called, everything clicked in my head." Raphael sat on a nearby bench, running his hands over his face. "Who was this woman? Did she say her name?" "Carla something, Carla Miller. She said she was a clinical psychologist and that you met on Tuesdays and Thursdays at her office in Notting Hill." Raphael sharply raised his head. Carla Miller? Marina, I know that woman, but it's nothing like what you're thinking. What do you mean? I really did seek a psychologist, but not because of you or the pregnancy. It was because I was having trouble sleeping, anxiety, panic attacks. My father had died a few months before, and I was dealing badly with his emotional legacy, with the pressure of being a father when I never had a good example of fatherhood. Marina frowned, processing the information. I scheduled a few sessions with Carla because a colleague recommended her. But after 3 meetings, I gave up. She was too invasive, asked questions about our intimacy that made me uncomfortable. And when I said I wanted to stop therapy to focus on improving our marriage on my own, she kept insisting I continue, that there was much more to explore. You never told me any of this. Because I was ashamed. Ashamed of having psychological problems, ashamed of not being able to deal with things alone. My father always said that men who need a psychologist are weak, and even knowing that was nonsense, I carried that voice in my head. Marina sat beside him on the bench, still processing the revelation. Sophia had fallen asleep in the stroller, lulled by the movement and fresh air. So you never had an affair with her? My God, Marina, never. I love you, I always have. The therapy was precisely so I could be a better husband and father to you both. But why would she call me? Why would she make something like that up? Raphael shook his head, genuinely confused. I have no idea. When I stopped going to sessions, she called a few times trying to convince me to come back. She even showed up at my office once, saying I was making a mistake, that I had deep issues to resolve. But I never imagined she could do something like this. Marina remained silent for a long time, watching Sophia sleep. Her world had been turned upside down by a phone call, and now she discovered that perhaps it was all just a cruel manipulation. Marina, do you believe me? She looked at him, seeing the genuine pain in his eyes, the confusion, the indignation. I don't know, Raphael. I spent so many months believing a version of the story that now it's hard to reorganize everything in my head. I understand. I know it's a lot to process at once. Why didn't you come to me to explain this when I asked for a divorce? Why didn't you fight harder? Raphael sighed deeply. Because I thought you had discovered something about me that I myself didn't know, that maybe deep down I really didn't want to be a father, that I really was the cold, selfish man you were accusing me of being, and I thought you deserved better. So you gave up on us. I gave up on myself. I thought I was doing the right thing by letting you both move on with your lives without me. Marina felt a mixture of anger and sadness, anger that he had given up so easily, sadness for everything they had lost because of misunderstandings and manipulations. Raphael, this woman destroyed our family. Yes, it seems so. And now? What do we do with this? Raphael looked at Sophia, who slept peacefully, oblivious to the adult's drama. Now we try to discover the whole truth, and we try to understand if there's still something to save between us. Marina didn't answer immediately. Part of her felt immense relief, knowing that perhaps Raphael hadn't betrayed her, that perhaps the man she had fallen in love with still existed. But another part resented the months of unnecessary pain, the loneliness during Sophia's first months of life, the feeling of having been abandoned when she needed him most. It won't be easy, she finally said. I know, but we can try. They returned to the room in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Sophia woke up during the journey and began to cry, hungry. Marina prepared a bottle, but when she offered it to Raphael, he hesitated. You can give it to her, Marina encouraged. You need to learn. Raphael held the bottle carefully, positioning Sophia in his arms the way he had observed Marina do. At first, the baby resisted, but soon settled down and began to drink peacefully, gazing at her father with her dark, attentive eyes. She has your eyes, Marina commented, observing the scene. And your nose. And your stubbornness, Raphael chuckled softly. How do you know she's stubborn? Because she spent 3 days refusing to sleep more than 2 hours straight, until I discovered she only sleeps if she's listening to classical music, just like her father who can't relax without Bach playing. It was a moment of lightness amidst so much tension, a reminder that they had once been happy together, that they had shared enough intimacy and complicity to create a life. When Sophia finished her bottle, Raphael placed her on his shoulder to burp her, exactly as he had seen Marina do dozens of times. And when the baby let out a small burp and then rested her head on his shoulder, he felt an explosion of paternal love that almost made him cry. "I think she liked you," Marina said softly. "I hope so. I have a lot of lost time to make up for." That night, for the first time since Sophia's admission, they both managed to sleep a few hours straight. Raphael in the armchair, Marina in the chair bed, and Sophia in the hospital crib, finally breathing normally and with a rosy color returning to her cheeks. But the conversation about Carla Miller had planted a seed of unease in Raphael. The next day, as soon as Sophia was discharged, he intended to thoroughly investigate who that woman was and why she had decided to destroy his family. And most importantly, to discover if she still posed any kind of threat. Meanwhile, Marina looked at the ceiling of the dark room, trying to reorganize 2 years of pain and resentment in light of the day's revelations. Was it possible that she had destroyed her marriage based on a lie? Was it possible to rebuild trust after so much water had passed under the bridge? She had no answers to these questions, but for the first time in a long time, she had hope that it might be possible to find them. Sophia's discharge was an emotional milestone for Raphael. Seeing his daughter leave the hospital in his arms, healthy and smiling, was a victory he didn't know he was waiting for. Marina walked beside him to the car, and for the first time in months, they seemed like a real family. Raphael had insisted on taking them both home, but Marina was emphatic. She preferred to return to her Chelsea apartment with Sophia. She wasn't ready for more intimate cohabitation, especially after everything they had discussed at the hospital. "I understand," Raphael said, helping to install the car seat in Marina's car. "But can I visit Sophia regularly now? I mean, without having to schedule through lawyers." Marina hesitated. The week in the hospital had shown a Raphael she didn't know. Present, attentive, genuinely interested in learning about his daughter. But there were still many open wounds, many unresolved issues. "We can talk about it. But slowly, Raphael, one step at a time." "Of course, however you feel comfortable." Over the next 3 days, Raphael called twice a day to check on Sophia's adjustment at home. The conversations were brief and formal, but without the hostility of previous months. Marina even sent some photos of the baby via WhatsApp, and Raphael found himself looking at them dozens of times throughout the day. But while trying to rebuild his relationship with his family, Raphael had not forgotten about Carla Miller. On the Tuesday following Sophia's discharge, he hired a private investigator recommended by his lawyer, Charles Denton, and no, he was not related. To the poet was a former Scotland Yard detective who now worked as a private investigator for businessmen and law firms. He was about 50, with a grey moustache and a direct manner of speaking that inspired confidence. "So, Mr. Sterling, you want me to investigate a psychologist who may have sabotaged your marriage?" "Exactly. Carla Miller, clinical psychologist, office in Notting Hill. I want to know everything about her. Education, professional history, if she's had problems with the board of psychologists, if she's done this with other patients." "Understood. How much time do you have?" "As much as you need. But I want answers." While Denton worked on the investigation, Raphael tried to reorganize his company. The week of absence during Sophia's hospitalization had caused a minor chaos at RS Energy. 2 important meetings had been cancelled. A contract for the supply of solar panels to an inland town needed to be renegotiated, and the European investors who had bought his shares were impatient to learn about expansion projects. But to his team's surprise, Raphael did not show his usual nervousness. He delegated decisions he previously considered exclusively his own, left the office at normal hours, and even refused a trip to Dublin that he considered essential just a week earlier. "Boss, is everything okay?" asked Roderick, his right-hand man and minority partner in the company. "You're different." "Different how?" "Calmer, less obsessed. Honestly, for the last 2 years you looked like an addicted workaholic. Now you seem, I don't know, more human." Raphael laughed. "Maybe that's it. Maybe I remembered that there are things more important than spreadsheets and projections." Does this have to do with your daughter? We heard she was sick. It has everything to do with it, and with other things too. On Thursday, Raphael finally managed to schedule a visit to see Sophia. Marina had agreed that he should go to her apartment after work, stay for 2 hours, and help with the baby's bath and dinner. Marina's apartment was small but cozy, decorated with the good taste Raphael had always admired in her. Photos of the pregnancy and Sophia's first months adorned the walls, and Raphael felt a pang of pain realizing he didn't appear in any of them. He had missed irreversible moments of his daughter's life. Sophia greeted him with a toothless smile that melted his heart. She was visibly bigger and smarter than the week before, and when Raphael approached, she extended her little arms towards him. "Wow, she remembered you," Marina commented, genuinely surprised. Raphael spent the next 2 hours completely absorbed by his daughter. He bathed her under Marina's careful supervision, learned to change diapers more efficiently, and discovered that Sophia loved it when he hummed classical music softly. When it was time to leave, he felt as if he had lived the most important day of his life. "Marina," he said before leaving, "thank you for this, for giving me this chance. Sophia needs her father. And you're being a real father." "I'm trying." "I see that." It was on Friday that Denton called with the first information about Carla Miller. "Mr. Sterling, I found some interesting things about your psychologist. Can we meet?" They met in Raphael's office late in the afternoon. Denton opened a folder full of documents and photos. Carla Miller is indeed a qualified psychologist, registered with the Board of Psychologists, but she has a complicated history. In 2019, she was reprimanded by the board for inappropriate conduct with patients. In 2021, she was suspended for 6 months for violation of professional secrecy. And last year, she was again investigated for harassment and psychological manipulation of patients. Raphael felt his blood run cold. What kind of manipulation? According to the complaints, she used to get emotionally involved with male patients, especially married ones. She would ask invasive questions about their intimate lives, then use that information to try to sabotage their relationships. Apparently, she has some kind of fixation on committed men. And can she still practice? She's licensed but under observation. Any new complaint could permanently revoke her registration. Denton showed several photos of Carla Miller taken from social media. She was a woman in her 40s, blonde hair, well-groomed appearance, but with something in her eyes that conveyed instability. "Sir, there's one more thing. I got her residential address. She lives alone in a penthouse in Kensington, well above what a psychologist's salary would allow. And I found out she's been married twice. Both ex-husbands have similar stories. She convinced them to leave their wives, claiming they didn't understand them, then married them, and in both cases the marriages lasted less than a year." Raphael leaned back in his chair, processing the information. "She's a predator." "That's a good definition. And from what I've gathered, you weren't the first and won't be the last. I need to tell Marina this. I recommend you be careful. This woman is dangerous when she feels threatened." Raphael called Marina as soon as Denton left. "I need to talk to you urgently. It's about Carla." "What did you find out?" "I prefer to talk in person. Can I come over?" Marina agreed, and Raphael arrived at her apartment an hour later, with all the documentation Denton had gathered. When he finished telling her everything, Marina was pale. "My God, Raphael, this woman is sick." "Yes, and she destroyed our family out of pure malice." Marina held the documents with trembling hands. "I can't believe I was deceived by someone like that. How did I not realize she was lying?" "Because she's a professional at it, Marina. You were pregnant, vulnerable, and she knew exactly what to say to convince you. And now, what do we do? Now we prove our innocence and prevent her from doing this to other families." But their plans were interrupted the following weekend by a completely different crisis. Raphael was having lunch with Marina and Sophia when he received an urgent call from Roderick. "Raphael, turn on the TV now, any news channel." Raphael found the remote control and tuned into BBC News. What he saw made him stand up abruptly from his chair. a large-scale protest was happening in front of RS Energy's headquarters. Hundreds of people carried signs protesting against the new wind farm project the company intended to install on the Cornish coast. They claimed the venture would destroy environmental preservation areas and harm traditional fishing communities. "What on earth is going on?" Raphael asked over the phone. An environmental group appeared and obtained an injunction from the court suspending the project. "They say our environmental license was obtained irregularly. Investors are terrified, the media is all over us, and people are calling for a boycott of all the company's products." Raphael sank heavily onto the sofa. The Cornwall wind farm was RS Energy's largest project, an investment of over £200 million that would guarantee the company's expansion into Scotland and consolidate its position as a national leader in renewable energy. "Roderick, call an emergency meeting for Monday morning. I'll call our lawyers and the press office and cancel anything I have on my schedule this week." Marina observed the tension settling on Raphael's face. "Is it very serious?" "It could be the end of the company, and it's not just a financial matter. If this project is cancelled, I'll lose the trust of investors, partners, clients. 15 years of work could go down the drain. And now?" Raphael looked at Sophia, who was playing on the carpet oblivious to the adult's problems, then at Marina, who watched him with a genuine concern she hadn't shown in months. "Now I'm going to have to fight to save my company. But this time, I won't do it alone. If you let me, I want you two to be part of my life, not just when there's spare time." Marina was silent for a moment. The week at the hospital had shown a different Raphael, more present and human. The revelations about Carla Miller had clarified misunderstandings that had corroded her trust. But now he was again facing a professional crisis that would demand all his attention and energy. Would it be different this time, or would the pressure make him revert to the obsessed workaholic he had been during their marriage? "Raphael," she finally said, "I want to believe you, but I won't go through all that again if you choose the company over us once more." "I won't choose. I'll find a way to have both." "How?" "I don't know yet, but I will find it." On Monday, when Raphael arrived at the office, he found a crowd of journalists at the building's door. The crisis had become a national scandal, with politicians and activists seizing the situation to take positions on environmental preservation versus economic development. Worse still, his assistant informed him that 3 major clients had cancelled contracts on Friday, and that banks were re-evaluating the company's credit lines. Raphael locked himself in his office and for the first time in years felt real fear of losing everything he had built. But when he picked up the phone to start making the calls that could save his company, the first person he called was Marina. "I just wanted you to know that I'm dealing with the crisis, but I won't let it affect our agreement. I'll be there tonight to bathe Sophia." "Raphael, if you need to work, I do. But I also need to be a father. And this time, I won't let one eliminate the other." Would it be a promise he could keep? Even he didn't know, but he was determined to try. The next 3 weeks were a test of Raphael's physical and emotional endurance. The RS energy crisis deepened when a journalistic investigation revealed that one of the partners of the construction company responsible for the wind farm works had connections with politicians involved in corruption schemes. Although RS Energy had no involvement in these schemes, the association was enough to generate a wave of distrust among investors and clients. Raphael spent his days rushing between meetings with lawyers, crisis sessions with his press office, and desperate negotiations with banks and investors. At night, no matter how exhausting the day had been, he religiously kept his commitment to go to Marina's apartment to spend 2 hours with Sophia. Marina observed this routine with a mixture of admiration and skepticism. Raphael really seemed determined to keep his promise not to let work affect his presence in Sophia's life. But she saw the fatigue accumulating on his face, the growing tension in his shoulders, the way he answered urgent emails even while feeding his daughter a bottle. "You're killing yourself," she said one Thursday, when Raphael almost fell asleep on the sofa while Sophia played on his lap. "I'm fine, just a little tired." "Raphael, when was the last time you slept more than 4 hours straight?" He tried to remember and realized he couldn't. It doesn't matter. In a few weeks, this crisis will resolve itself and you'll collapse before that happens. Raphael knew Marina was right, but he saw no alternative. His company was his life's work, and he couldn't simply let it sink. At the same time, he had made a promise to himself and Marina that he would be a present father to Sophia. The situation became even more complicated when Carla Miller reappeared in their lives. On Monday of the fourth week of the crisis, Marina called Raphael completely distraught. "She was here, Raphael. Carla was at my apartment." Raphael, who was in a meeting with Japanese investors, immediately left the conference room. "What do you mean she was there? What did she want?" "I don't know. She rang the doorbell, said she needed to talk to me urgently about you. I didn't let her in, but she kept insisting. At the door, saying she had important information about your company, about money you would have given her." "What money?" "Marina, I never gave that woman a penny." I know, I didn't believe her, but she said she would prove it, that she had documents. She was strange, Raphael, talking very fast, looking desperate." Raphael felt a chill. An unstable psychologist with information about his company at a time of extreme crisis was the last thing he needed. "Marina, are you okay?" "Is Sophia okay?" "We're fine. But I'm scared." "What if she comes back?" "I'll send someone to keep an eye on your building, and I'll call Denton for him to investigate what she's planning." But Raphael didn't have time to take any action. On Tuesday afternoon, while he was on a video conference with European investors trying to convince them not to withdraw funding from the company, his phone started ringing insistently. It was a number he didn't recognize. Raphael Sterling. "Yes. This is Dr. Marcus from King's College Hospital. Your wife, Marina Sterling, was in a car accident and is being treated in our emergency room." The world stopped. How is she?" "Stable, but she needed surgery, a fractured right arm and a mild concussion. She'll be fine, but needs to be admitted for observation." "And my daughter, was she with my daughter?" "The child was not injured. She was in her car seat and was protected by the airbag. A neighbor of the lady is taking care of her at the moment." Raphael disconnected from the video conference without explanation, grabbed his keys, and ran out of the office. On the way to the hospital, his mind raced between concern for Marina, relief that Sophia was okay, and a growing anguish about how he would manage everything alone. Marina was conscious when he arrived at the hospital, but visibly shaken. Her right arm was in a cast, and she had some bruises on her face, but the doctors confirmed there was nothing serious. "How did it happen?" Raphael asked, holding her hand carefully. "I don't know exactly. I was coming back from the pediatrician with Sophia, stopped at a traffic light in Notting Hill, and a car hit me from behind. The driver said he didn't see me brake, but I swear the light had been red for over 10 seconds. The important thing is that you're both okay." "Raphael, Sophia, she must be terrified. She doesn't know Mrs. Celia, the neighbor who's looking after her." "I'll go get her now. How long do you need to stay admitted?" 3 days at least, for concussion observation." Raphael hesitated. 3 days taking care of Sophia alone, without Marina to guide him, in the midst of his company's worst crisis. But when he looked at Marina's worried face, his decision was automatic. "Don't worry about anything. I'll take care of everything." Picking up Sophia from Mrs. Celia's apartment was a revealing experience. The neighbor, a woman in her 70s, had taken care of the baby all afternoon, but Sophia was visibly agitated and tearful. The moment she saw Raphael, she extended her little arms to him and immediately calmed down. "My, she really recognizes her father," Mrs. Celia commented. "Lucky you can take care of her. A child needs family in times of difficulty." Raphael took Sophia to his Mayfair apartment. It was a modern, masculine space, totally unsuitable for a baby. It had no crib, high chair, toys, or any of the items Sophia was used to. The first night was a complete disaster. Sophia cried almost non-stop from 11 at night until 5 in the morning. Raphael tried everything: bottle, diaper change, music, walks around the apartment. Nothing worked. She only calmed down for a few minutes when he rocked her in his arms, but started crying again as soon as he tried to put her on the sofa to sleep. At 6 in the morning, Raphael was exhausted and desperate. He called Marina at the hospital. "She won't stop crying, Marina. I don't know what else to do." "She misses her crib, her familiar things. Can you get some things from my apartment? I have an extra key at the concierge." Raphael spent the morning transporting half of Sophia's room to his apartment. Crib, musical mobile, stuffed animals, clothes, hygiene products. Roderick called 3 times, asking about the meeting with the bank scheduled for that morning, and Raphael had to cancel. "Boss, you can't cancel this meeting. It's about the bridge loan renewal. If we don't get it..." "Roderick, my daughter needs me now. You'll have to take the meeting." "But I don't have authorization to sign." "Then get a power of attorney and do what needs to be done. I trust you." The second night was better. Sophia slept in her familiar crib and only woke up twice. Raphael began to better understand his daughter's patterns. She liked her bottle warm but not hot, preferred soft music to absolute silence, and had a well-defined schedule for eating, sleeping, and playing. On the third day, Raphael had become a rudimentary but functional version of a full-time father. He could change diapers without spilling powder on the floor, prepare bottles at the right temperature, and even bathe Sophia without soaking her in shampoo. More importantly, he was genuinely loving every moment. He discovered that Sophia laughed when he made funny faces, that she loved it when he hummed Italian operas, and that she already had a well-defined personality. She was curious, stubborn when she didn't want something, but also extremely affectionate. It was during this third day that Roderick appeared at the apartment with devastating news about the company. "Raphael, we lost the bridge loan renewal. The bank cited increased risk due to sector instability. Without that money, we can't pay suppliers for ongoing projects." Raphael looked at Sophia, who was sleeping peacefully in his arms after lunch. "How much time do we have?" 2 weeks at most. After that, we'll have to go into administration." Administration. The word Raphael had always considered synonymous with total failure. His company, built with so much sweat and dedication, could cease to exist. And the Japanese investors? They pulled out, said they don't want to associate with politically controversial companies. Raphael closed his eyes and took a deep breath. For a moment, he considered rushing back to the office, abandoning everything and dedicating the next few days exclusively to saving RS Energy. That's what he would have done a few weeks ago. But when he looked at Sophia sleeping in his arms, he realized he couldn't. She was his priority now, regardless of professional consequences. "Roderick, you'll have to take over operations for the next few days. Do what you can to hold the fort. When Marina gets out of the hospital, we'll sit down and reorganize everything." "Boss, are you sure? It's your company, your life." "It's not just my company, and it's definitely not just my life." That night, as Sophia slept in the crib beside his bed, Raphael found himself watching his daughter's peaceful breathing. In the last 3 days, he had discovered a paternity he didn't know existed within him, and he had also discovered that there were things more important than business success and public recognition. His phone vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number. "I need to talk to you urgently. I know how to solve your problems at the company and with Marina. Carla." Raphael deleted the message without replying. Carla Miller had caused enough damage to his family. He would not allow her to take advantage of the crisis to cause even more problems. But as he tried to fall asleep, Raphael couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. Marina's discharge arrived on a sunny Thursday morning. Raphael picked her up from the hospital with Sophia in his arms, and the reunion between mother and daughter was moving to watch. Marina cried as she held Sophia again, and the baby snuggled into her mother's chest as if she had intensely missed her. On the way to Marina's apartment, Raphael recounted in detail the 3 days he had spent alone with Sophia. He spoke of the sleepless nights, the discoveries about his daughter's personality, and especially how fulfilled he had felt caring for her full time. "You've changed," Marina observed, seeing how Raphael held Sophia naturally, how he anticipated her needs, how he seemed genuinely relaxed in his daughter's presence. "I have changed. I discovered that being a father it's more important than anything I imagined before. And the company? Roderick told me the situation is critical." Raphael sighed. "It is. I could lose everything I've built in the last 15 years. But for the first time in my life, that's not the most important thing. Marina remained silent, processing this revelation. The Raphael she had known during their marriage would never say a sentence like that. When they arrived at the apartment, Raphael helped Marina settle in and prepared a simple lunch while she fed Sophia. Their cohabitation was strangely natural, as if they were truly a family. It was in this moment of domestic tranquility that the doorbell rang. Marina frowned. "I'm not expecting anyone." Raphael went to the intercom. "Who is it?" "Delivery for Marina Sterling." "What delivery?" "Important documents." Raphael looked at Marina, who shook her head negatively. She hadn't ordered any delivery. "You can leave it at the concierge. It needs to be delivered in person. It's urgent." Raphael felt something strange. "Marina, take Sophia and go to the bedroom. Lock the door." "Why? Just go. Now." Marina obeyed instinctively, taking Sophia to the bedroom and closing the door. Raphael cautiously opened the apartment door and found Carla Miller in the hallway holding a folder of documents. She looked different from the elegant woman in the photos Denton had shown. She seemed to have lost weight. Her blonde hair was disheveled, and there was something desperate in her eyes. "Raphael, I finally got to talk to you. What do you want, Carla, and how did you get into the building?" "I told the doorman I was your psychologist and that you were going through a crisis. He let me up." She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "I need to talk to you. It's about Marina, about your company, about our future." "Our future? Carla, you're delusional. We have no future." "Yes, we do. You just haven't realized it yet." She opened the folder and took out some documents. "I brought proof that Marina is not the woman you think she is." Raphael quickly glanced at the papers. They were falsified bank statements, supposedly showing money transfers from Marina to an offshore account. There were also digitally manipulated photos showing Marina in romantic encounters with unknown men. "Carla, this is ridiculous. Anyone can see these photos are fake. They are evidence that she has been deceiving you for years. And I have more proof. Proof that her accident was intentional, to get your attention, to make you feel guilty." Raphael realized he was dealing with a truly unbalanced person. "Carla, I'm calling the police if you don't leave now." "You won't call anyone." Her voice rose several tones. "You need me, Raphael. Your company is broken, your ex-wife is manipulating you, and I'm the only person who truly understands you." It was at this moment that Raphael fully understood the extent of Carla's obsession. She hadn't sabotaged his marriage out of gratuitous malice. She had done it because she was obsessed with him, because she had created a romantic fantasy where they would end up together. "Carla, listen. You need professional help. What you're doing—" "I am professional help," she screamed. "I'm a psychologist. I know what's best for you better than you do yourself." The bedroom door opened and Marina appeared, still with her, arm in a cast, but carrying Sophia in her left arm. "Enough, Carla, enough of all this madness." Carla looked at Marina with pure hatred. You ruined everything. He was starting to break free from you until this child appeared and—" "The child is his daughter," Marina said firmly, "and I'm the woman he loves. You are just a sick person who needs treatment." Carla took a step towards Marina, and Raphael immediately positioned himself between them. "Carla, it's time for you to leave, and if you try to approach my family again, I will take legal action." "Your family?" Carla laughed hysterically. "You're not even married anymore. She kicked you out of her life. I saw the interviews. I know you separated." "We are rebuilding our relationship," Raphael said calmly, "and you are not part of it." It was at that moment that Denton appeared in the hallway, accompanied by 2 police officers. "Dr. Carla Miller," Denton said, "you are under arrest for harassment, document forgery, and violation of the psychological code of ethics." Carla looked around, realizing she was surrounded. "You don't understand. I was trying to help. She's no good for him. She's going to destroy his life." As the officers handcuffed Carla and led her away, screaming incoherently, Denton approached Raphael. "Mr. Sterling, we investigated further as you requested. Carla Miller has a history of psychiatric hospitalizations for erotomanic delusional disorder. She has done this with at least 6 other men in the last 5 years, always the same pattern. Approaches as a professional, develops an obsession, sabotages the patient's relationship, then tries to insert herself into his life. And now she will be compulsorily admitted and permanently lose her professional registration. You won't have any more problems with her. When Denton and the police left, Raphael closed the apartment door and leaned against it, exhausted. Marina was sitting on the sofa, still holding Sophia, with tears in her eyes. Marina, she was right about one thing, Marina said softly. We're not married anymore, and I kicked you out of our life. But that was based on her lies. It was. But it was also based on real problems we already had. Raphael, even before Carla appeared, our marriage was deteriorating. Raphael sat beside her on the sofa. It's true, I was so obsessed with the company that I didn't realize I was losing you both. And I was so hurt that I couldn't discuss the problems maturely. I preferred to harbor resentments until I exploded. They were silent for a moment, watching Sophia, who was distractedly playing with a rattle. Marina, Raphael finally said, these last few weeks have changed my life. I discovered that being a father is the most important thing I've ever done. I discovered that I love you in a way I didn't even know existed. And I discovered that professional success is worthless if I don't have you to share it with. And your company, Roderick said. The situation is very serious. It is. I could lose everything, but I prefer to be a financially broken man, rich in family, than a successful and lonely businessman. Marina looked into his eyes, searching for signs that he was being sincere. Raphael, if we try again, if we really try to rebuild our relationship, it has to be different this time. It will be. I promise it will be. I don't want promises. I want actions. Then I'll show you with actions. The next morning, Raphael went to his office and called a meeting with the entire board of Aritus Energy. He was prepared to make the most difficult decision of his business career. Everyone, he said, looking at Roderick and the other partners, we're selling the company. The silence in the room was absolute. Boss, are you sure? Roderick asked. I know the situation is difficult, but maybe we can... I'm sure. I received an offer from the Germans last week. It's less than the company is worth, but it will pay off all debts and still leave something for all of us. And then, what will you do? Raphael smiled. I'm going to be a full-time father, for a few months. Then I'll open a smaller consultancy, something I can manage without traveling all the time or working weekends. The sale of RS Energy was completed in 2 weeks. Raphael emerged from it with enough money to live comfortably, but without the pressure of managing a business empire. During this period, he spent every day at Marina's apartment, taking care of Sophia while she fully recovered from the accident. Their cohabitation became natural and pleasant. They rediscovered each other as a couple, but this time with maturity and awareness of past mistakes. One night, 3 weeks after Carla's arrest, Raphael was bathing Sophia when Marina approached. Raphael, I need to tell you something. What is it? Today I received a job offer. An architecture firm in Edinburgh wants me to coordinate an affordable housing project. It's an incredible opportunity, but it's in Edinburgh. It is, and I know you just reorganized your life here in London. Raphael finished rinsing Sophia and wrapped her in a fluffy towel. Marina, wherever you go, I'll go too. If you think it's a good opportunity, we'll move. You would do that, leave London? I would do anything to be close. To you both. Marina smiled, but there were tears in her eyes. Raphael, are you sure this is what you want? A simple life, without great business ambitions, taking care of a baby in Edinburgh? Raphael looked at Sophia, who gazed at him with her dark, curious eyes, then looked at Marina, the woman he had loved for so many years. Marina, I spent my whole life thinking that success was synonymous with money and power, but these last few weeks have taught me that success is having people you love sleeping peacefully in your home. It's knowing that you are important in someone's life not for what you have, but for what you are. That night, after putting Sophia to sleep by softly singing to her, Raphael and Marina talked until dawn about plans for the future, about past mistakes, about what it would be like to start over together in a new city. It was during this conversation that Raphael realized he was ready for the final step. The following Saturday, Raphael organized a picnic in Hyde Park. He took Marina and Sophia to the place where they had had their first official date, years ago. He spread a red checkered blanket under the same tree where once they had dreamed together about the future. Sophia crawled through the grass, exploring leaves and twigs with the typical curiosity of a child almost a year old. Marina watched her with a relaxed and happy smile that Raphael hadn't seen in a long time. "Marina," Raphael said, suddenly nervous, "there's something I want to tell you." "What is it?" Raphael knelt on the grass beside her and took a simple white gold ring with a small but brilliant solitaire from his pocket. "It's not a new ring," he said, a little awkwardly. "It's the engagement ring I gave you 4 years ago, but which you returned when you separated from me. I had it cleaned and resized." Marina's eyes widened. "Raphael." "Marina Sterling, I want to marry you again. Not because we have a daughter together, not because it's convenient, but because I discovered that you are the only woman in the world I want to grow old with. I want to raise Sophia with you. I want to have other children if you want. I want to move to Edinburgh or anywhere else on the planet if necessary. I want to be the man you deserve and the father Sophia deserves." Marina was crying but smiling at the same time. "Raphael, I know I made terrible mistakes. I know I disappointed you, that I abandoned you when you needed me most. I know it will take time to completely regain your trust. But if you give me a chance, I will spend the rest of my life proving that I have truly changed." Marina looked at the ring, then at Sophia, who was drooling happily on a leaf, then at the man kneeling in front of her with eyes full of love and hope. "Raphael Sterling," she finally said, "I accept to marry you again, but this time we're going to do it right." "How so?" "This time we will marry knowing exactly who we are, what our limitations are, what our priorities are. We will not marry with unrealistic expectations or romantic illusions. We will marry because we consciously choose to build a life together." Raphael placed the ring on Marina's finger and kissed her gently. Sophia, as if realizing something important was happening, crawled towards her parents and tried to stand up, leaning on Raphael's knee. "Look at that," Marina laughed through her tears. "She's approving the engagement." Raphael picked Sophia up and the three hugged on the park grass as the London sun set orange and gold on the horizon. 6 months later, Raphael and Marina remarried in a small, intimate ceremony in Edinburgh, where they had moved so Marina could take on the housing project. Sophia, now walking confidently, was the youngest and most adorable flower girl the guests had ever seen. Raphael opened his business sustainability consultancy and discovered that he could be professionally successful, working part-time and prioritizing his family. Marina found fulfillment, coordinating a project that would provide dignified homes for over 1,000 low-income families. And every night, when they put Sophia to sleep by softly singing to her, Raphael and Marina looked at each other and knew they had found something much more valuable than first love. They had found mature love, built on truth, conscious choice, and the daily miracle of a family that chose to stay together, despite all storms. Carla Miller was hospitalized for a year in a psychiatric hospital, and upon discharge moved to the Lake District, where she works as a saleswoman in a clothing store and has therapy 3 times a week. She never again attempted contact with Raphael or Marina, and so a story that began with a man fleeing his own life ended with that same man fully embracing his life, his responsibilities, and the love he almost lost due to pride and fear of not being enough.